Welcome to the world of whipped cream. It's my pleasure today to show you how to make the perfect icing in whipped cream. You know, when we're trying to please clients, there are those clients who absolutely have to have whipped cream. They don't want anything else. And so we have to know how to please them in a perfect way. It doesn't mean that we can't use gum paste or royal icing in terms of keepsakes or anything, but this is what they want to eat. So today I'm going to decorate my whipped cream camellia cake for you. I'm going to show you how to make the icing, the whipped cream icing, how to stabilize it, and how to pipe the flowers and how to pipe the elegant scroll on the side of the cake. So first of all, I just want to introduce you to some of the equipment that we're going to need. So over here on this side, I have the decorating equipment. I'm going to need parchment bags, large parchment cones that I've made up here. Probably, I don't know, maybe 6 or so for this particular cake. I need scissors. Perhaps I'll use some edible glitter at the end. I need 127 tips, rose tips, and I need a 10 and a 7 plain tip. These 2 tips right here. And just something to get the icing into the tips and the cones, so I'm going to explain that. I'm going to move over to the other side. And then also you'll notice that I have some real camellia leaves. So I like to pair reality with the whipped cream. And the equipment that we're going to use includes a digital scale, a straight spatula and offset spatula, approximately 8 inches, rubber scraper, the whip, and I like to use a 6-quart or a 5-quart mixing bowl, or anything larger if you have that. I mean, if you have a 4.5, it's not impossible, a 4.5 quart, but with the 4.5 quart, sometimes the bowls are a little bit difficult to lift up, and I like to lift them up during the mixing. And then also I have a thermometer here. I'll show you how to use the digital thermometer to take the temperature of the water that we're going to heat up a little bit. And I have this straight edge scraper, sometimes known as a bench scraper, but I'm going to use it to perfect my icing on the side of the cake. And so now we're ready to get started, and I'm going to show you how to actually make the perfect icing. I'd like to share with you now my magic formula for the whipped cream icing. This is the master formula now. For every 8 ounces of cream, and I use manufacturing cream, which is 35% fat, so the higher the fat content, the faster this is going to whip. It doesn't mean that you cannot use any other type of cream. You can use ultra pasteurized if you like, but the whipping process is definitely going to take longer. Okay, so just so that you know. So for every 8 ounces of cream, I use 1 ounce of sifted powdered sugar and 1/4 teaspoon of real vanilla extract. Okay, and then for the stabilizing part, I use 3/4 to 1 teaspoon of unflavored gelatin per cup and 4 teaspoons of room temperature water. So there's 2 parts to this. There's the cream, and then there's the stabilizer, which is made of gelatin and water. Okay, so I'd like to show you how to do this. I'm using my digital scale, and I've got it tiered here, and I'm going to make 4 cups of this, so I'm just multiplying the basic master formula by 4, and so I should have 8 times 4, 32 ounces, which actually equals 2 pounds. So we're trying to get everything exact here, and I'm certainly glad that I got another ½ gallon of this cream, because I'm supposed to have more than this, but anyway, we want to get it exact, so I'm going to give you, there we go, 2 ounces, 2 pounds. Okay, and so then I'm going to tare that again, and I'm going to add 4 ounces of sifted powdered sugar right to this. So I like to use a tamis when I sift the powdered sugar. Let me show you a tamis. This makes it really, really easy when you sift. So, okay, so we're wanting 4 ounces. We've got almost. Okay, so I like to get all of this. We have 3 7/8, 4. Okay, and then because it's a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract, I'm going to add a teaspoon of vanilla extract because again it's 1/4 times 4, which equals 1 teaspoon. Okay, so we'll just pour this right in. And just a little hint, I always like to close the extract bottles right after I use them because one time I didn't and it went all over the place. That was an expensive goof. So anyway, that's just a little hint. Anyway, so now I have this here and I'm going to put this in the on the mixer here. And I'm going to use the whip attachment here. So that's half of the stabilizing effect here. Let's see if we can get this on here. There we go. Put this up. All right, now I want to talk a little bit about the stabilizing. So basically I take room temperature water, 4 teaspoons per cup. So that means I have 16 teaspoons of water and 3/4 to 1 teaspoon per cup, approximately 4 teaspoons of gelatin to every 16 tablespoons of water. So I have prepared this, and this is what it looks like when the gelatin blooms. So it's swollen. The gelatin has, the protein in the gelatin has absorbed the water. And so now what I have to do is heat this and dissolve this gelatin. Now, one little hint about this, and that is that you don't want to heat this too hot. About 140 is actually too hot. You want to get this to maybe the highest about 120 degrees, and so this is why I use the digital thermometer. So I'm going to do this, and so I just heat this on the stove, and I'm going to show you in a moment, you know, the setup for this. But anyway, I'd like to get the this part finished, and whether you want 8 cups or 10 cups, everything is again multiples of the master formula which I have given you. Okay, so now, and I also want to have my rubber scraper here just to kind of get the remnants of the cream and so forth that splashes up here because I want to make it very, very homogeneous. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how I set up the stove, and I'm going to start dissolving this gelatin while I mix this. And I mix this basically to a ribbon stage. You don't want to overmix this either, so you don't want to overheat it, you don't want to overmix it because you don't want it to turn into butter actually. Not now anyway, sometime in the future maybe if you want butter you can do that. But anyway, right now we're going to go over to the stove. How's that? Alright, so right now what I'm doing is turning on the burner here. What I have is a little bit of water. I don't want this water to get hot enough to boil. So I just want to dissolve this gelatin. So it's going to be much sooner than boiling. It might steam a little bit. And so what we want this to do is to dissolve. So you can see the crystals of the gelatin now. When this is done, it will be completely a clear liquid. So we'll get that started, and in the meantime, I'm going to start whipping the cream. So I'm going to turn this on to a medium-high speed. Lift the bowl a little bit and turn this off before we get going too much, and I'm going to clean off this and make sure that all this sugar is incorporated into the cream. Okay, all right. So we're going to beat this to an early ribbon stage. I'm lifting the bowl so I make sure that the beater hits the bottom of the bowl. So while this is whipping, I'm going to periodically go back to the gelatin station on the stove and make sure that it doesn't overheat. So this is at the early ribbon stage, so I'm going to stop, and you can see the little ribbons in there. So when you see that, you're ready to check out the gelatin to make sure that that's perfect. over here you're going to see now the clear gelatin solution. So we've gotten rid of all these are just little air bubbles because I've been shaking it, but basically all the little granules of gelatin have been dissolved. There's nothing worse than having gelatin crystals in something where it's supposed to be dissolved, because it's like, it would be like eating sand, and we don't want to do that. So what I've done is I've gotten the thermometer out here, and I want the temperature that you don't want to melt the fat in the cream when you add your warm gelatin. So basically, the temperature, the less cream that you're making, the cooler the temperature has to be, because otherwise you're going to have lumps of gelatin in there. So I'm doing 4 cups, which is not a huge amount. So if I'm doing 8 cups, maybe I want the temperature of this to be about 120, something like that. When I'm down to here, 118, 117 is very good, because again, I don't want to melt the fat. So I'm checking this out. And this looks good. This is so I want to add this because I don't want it to be too cold, because then that would have the same effect. So what I'm doing is I'm going to pour this in here, and immediately I'm going to put it on high speed and count approximately 40 to 50 rotations of the beater, of the mixer. Okay, so I'm putting it in, on, high speed, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Looks good. So here we have it. You know what? I'm gonna beat it maybe 5 more. Just want to make sure that it's stiff enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Very good. Okay. So we don't want it to curdle. We don't want it to mix so that it curdles. We still want it to be smooth. Okay. So now I'm going to ice the cake and get ready to decorate. So as you can see, the cake is iced. Just like as you would ice a buttercream cake. So you want smooth sides and a pretty smooth top, and it doesn't have to have a lot of whipped cream on the top, because you're going to put all those beautiful flowers. So right now what I'd like to do is I always do the elegant scroll on the side of the cake first before I do anything else. So I'm going to be taking a number 5 tip, which is just a plain tip, and loading this paper cone about halfway, and we'll get started. So we have the cone loaded, so to speak, and so now I'm actually going to sit on a chair so that I'm eye level when I'm doing the scroll on the side of the cake. Okay, so I'm going to start approximately in the middle of the cake and make a small scroll and a bigger scroll. Yeah, see, this is better now. I think the stuff is getting a little... So when you're doing this, you want to use as even pressure as possible, and you're coming over here to the end, and we'll just make this fit in here because it's all going to blend together. Then after we do our scroll, our outline of the scroll, we're actually going to make some little tendrils, or whatever you want to call them. I'm just going to add these just to embellish the scroll. This. So again, pressure control, just I'm approaching this almost at a 90-degree angle, and just a light pressure, even pressure. So, and I might decide to add some more. It's just all connecting and building the scroll, because we want some depth to it. Okay, and so now we're going to take our tip again, and we're going to embellish and fill out this scroll, and we're going to use a motion that's sort of a tight circular motion, but very, very tight in this inside the scroll. So I'm going to do this kind of fast. I can do it slowly at first, and then I'm going to do it fast. So I'm just going to fill this out inside. So I'm using the outline and basically filling out the scroll here. So I wasn't too concerned that the scroll was not sticking out here. So I'm going to just put this here. Okay, that's our connecting point. And just in a little swirl here inside. So we have a beautiful, elegant overpiping here. And this again is with the number 5. There we go. We're all finished with that. You can see that's very, very elegant. So I'm finished here, and so my next step is that I'm going to get a number 8 tip and do a smooth shell border around the bottom. Really fast. Here we go. So now I'm going to take the number 8 tip and squeeze out some small smooth shells, just like this. Just build and release. I'm rotating here. Build, release. So a lot of people do shells and they go back and forth, but actually just squeeze, build, and just always go forward. Releasing as you want to finish. I'm doing it slowly so that you can see how I'm doing this. So I'm always going ahead of me. I don't pull backwards. So everything here is a smooth look rather than introducing any serrated or any rosette type textures. Everything is smooth. The next step is to actually form the camellias on top of the cake. So here's some little handy hints, I hope. I have multiple 127s. It's one of my favorite size rose tips. So I have a zillion of them actually, because each cone, and I do use paper cones, takes its own tip, and you don't want to reload. And let me just show you why I use paper so that I can throw them away. I use a paste. This is Baker's Rose for this particular one. And the cones have a back, which is here, and then the top, or the front, I guess the top. And so I'm going to paint with a brush that's about 1/4 of an inch wide. I'm going to paint a stripe of this Baker's Rose up in the middle from the tip all the way up to the top of the paper cone. So you don't really want to be doing this to your canvas bags or whatever. So that's why I use the paper. So here we go now. So I have, you can see that, I have this painted at the top of the bag, and so then I want to make sure that the top of the tip, or the thin part of the tip, is up at the top as well, so it kind of matches the position of the stripe. Okay, so now I'm going to load the whipped cream in here, and there we go. You don't want this too full. I fold this, and so we're ready to form the flowers. So in slow motion, I start off at a 45. I'm going to make multiple petals. First, I'm going to do all of the first row of petals first, and then I'm going to build the flowers. So I start at about a 45-degree angle, and I just sort of come back and change the angle and come back in here. So I actually make a whole petal. So I do this kind of fast. And right now, let me just squeeze that. Oh, I got this this on the wrong side here. So now I'm going to we don't show any striping yet, but we will. So again, 45, and then just turn and come back. Now we're starting to see some striping. Come back. Come back. So, again, like that. And I like them hanging over the edge and so forth, overlapping. So again, 45, and then just come back to form a whole petal. These are coming out exceptionally well. So, you know, there's all kinds of varieties of camellias, and this one I was just sort of inspired by one I saw that had dark stripes on it. So I want to squeeze this, and I'm noticing that it's getting darker, which is great. So I want to balance that. So I'm coming back over to this other side so that it's not all dark in on one side. I'm doing this again, so I can get all of this. And notice that this is not falling off because, again, it's the stabilized cream. So now I'm going to see if I can get one more and then squeeze it like that. Now I have to load another cone, which I like to load them as I need them because I don't want the cream to start softening in the bags, because, again, the bags are not totally oblivious to water, which of course is in the cream. So I kind of do it one by one. So I'll be right back. Okay, so we're continuing, and we have a new bag. I sort of squeeze to get things started, and it's so pretty to have the different shades. Now, whipped cream, I like to pair this icing with cakes that are foam cakes, such as angel food or sponge, or, you know, genoise or something like that. Also, this icing is gorgeous on top of a cheesecake. What I do is I tend to pair whipped cream with any cake that doesn't have butter in it, like a layer cake, any dense cake, because the butter cakes are supposed to be tasted at room temperature. And by the time that happens, your whipped cream may spoil. So, okay, now I'm going to, again, move on, load another cone.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I've just changed another bag, and I'm just piping all of the first layer. Now I'm going to come back in between, and again, a slightly higher angle, and I'm just going to curve and just come back on the petal. Very similar to a, say, a sweet pea petal or something like that, except that I'm up instead of flat on the surface. I just kind of come back and try and, depending on the how the color is coming out, I sort of want to distribute it so it looks even. Now there are some camellias that have a more rounded and open feel, and you can do that. And you can also very effectively airbrush whipped cream. And then if you wanted to put on a cake, not this particular cake, but if you wanted to pair this, say, with a keepsake, you can make your keepsake, and then by putting dowels on the cake, of course it would be a smooth surface, you can combine your royal icing work with your and your gum paste work with your whipped cream, as long as they don't touch each other. So I've done that very effectively. So you can do all kinds of things. Whipped cream does not limit you in terms of your other creative venues with gum paste. And again, I'm doing this pretty fast because these are, I'm just squeezing and coming back. And now I'm going to pipe a third level and kind of round it and fill it out. Now some camellias have little stamens in the middle, yellow stamens. But this variety doesn't, because this one's more of a closed camellia. But I'm just showing you, and I'm sure that you can just use this information and go to town with your creativity. It's meant to inspire. And we're almost done here. Looking good. Just filling that in. Okay. So again, I went from the outside to the inside. And so we have that ready. And so now we're going to add our camellia leaves because it is so beautiful. The contrast of the cream to, you know, and even pairing whipped cream, a plainer variety, a plainer design with real flowers is also very popular. But this just really makes these pop. So I'm putting these real camellia leaves in various positions around the edge. You don't want too many, but you want to vary them. Vary the position here. And you don't want them too big, although you can use a little bit larger leaf in the center, sort of at an angle here. So you use about, maybe 7 or 8 leaves on this. But this makes this kind of pop here. Okay, maybe we'll add one more in the center. You don't want to have any particular side. You want it all to be, you know, kind of a 360 presentation. So now we have our finished whipped cream camellia cake ready for enjoyment. And thank you so much. I was so pleased to share all this with you.